Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome, Pittsburgh Steelers fans. Welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverell and I'm joined by my co-host as always, Mark Davison. Davo, how you going?
Yeah, good, mate. What's going on, Matty? How are we? Another Sunday
good.
day, another day to talk Steelers football, and this is the week that we have the Pro Bowl, and this week it's to do with Madden and stuff like that, which is quite weird. And the Pro Bowl used to be something really fun to watch, so it's kind of a good thing, I guess. Our Steelers aren't really in because it's only Pro Bowl week and there's no real football, so it's kind of like we are going to the off season. And then of course we got the big Super Bowl next week, which is Chiefs and Chiefs and Bucks, pretty much. So Brady's in there again, this is just his 10th time around for the Super Bowl, which is like, what are your quick thoughts on that? Like for him being there 10 times, like I know we have a big hatred for the guy, and I certainly do. Like he's always, to me, he's that guy in school was so good at everything, and you just had to hate him for it. Like Brady, 10 times there. That's almost a season worth of Super Bowl. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so looks like you're picking up on Jeff's sentiment. So as everyone knows, we're part of BTSC's family of podcasts. So BTSC is behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Jeff actually had a really interesting article, one of the co-editors, the other co-editor being Dave Schofield as well. But Jeff did an editorial sort of comment feature around exactly what you picked up on there, Mark, which was, Brady's that guy at school, the good-looking guy, he's good at everything, he's QB1, has everything in life, and he's in another Super Bowl. And it's tiring. And as a Steelers fan, you're like, ugh. And I mean, look, and a big shout out to the people, everyone that's joining the live chat already. Jer Devil, Big Bro Sco, Ty, Azatic Noble, AJ's in there as usual. But people are already starting to say, it's damn that guy again. And also, they're loaded. I mean, the Bucks have absolutely loaded up for this season. It's no surprise that they're sitting there. But look, they got there. They beat a very good Green Bay team. I mean, that's a very good Green Bay team that we talked about. And as last week when we did a bit of a preview of the AFC Championship game and the NFC Championship game as well, I sort of said if it was going to be the Packers, then let's take the Bills. Let's get them in there. It'd be a hard game with lots of splash plays. But if the Bucks are going to get in, let's make sure it's Patrick Mahomes in there slinging their rock and taking down Tom Brady. So, I mean, look, the NFL, they couldn't have asked for more. I mean, apart from having State Farm buy all the ads for the Super Bowl, if Aaron Rodgers had got in with Patrick Mahomes, you've now got a situation, you've got the GOAT for a lot of people in Brady, and then you've got the up-and-coming GOAT in Patrick Mahomes there, back-to-back Super Bowls. I mean, marketability-wise, it's great. And actually, Mark, it's really interesting because there was a question that I posed or a topic that I posed in the BTSC Slack channel this week, which I was dying to – I didn't have time this week to write an article about it or anything like it, bit of an opinion piece, but I was dying to actually get your thoughts on it as well. And that's around the salary cap. So – with the salary cap, obviously we know that's one of the major questions this offseason. And in fact, I should tease the title for today's show. The Steelers offseason is all about the number one. So we're going to go through a bunch of reasons why the number one is the important thing to be thinking about with everything that's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But let's start with the cap. So when we talk about the cap potentially lowering, you've seen agents come out this week and actually say, we think the salary cap will remain the same or go higher. And obviously it's this big debate right now. Is the salary cap going to be the floor of $175 million? Is it going to be the floor of $180 million, which is what Pro Football Talk are projecting at? Is it going to be $190, whatever it is? I think it's very interesting what the NFL choose to do here, because if we think about it, the NFL, once we get through the Super Bowl, got through a full season. Now, if we rewind the clocks back to last year when all the preseason games were cancelled, did we really think we were going to get to the Super Bowl with no cancelled games? Equally, for our Pittsburgh Steelers, we had so many scheduling issues. I feel like we bore the brunt more than any other team of issues relating to COVID and COVID protocols. The players still fulfilled their end of the bargain. They got through, and I know they got paid exactly what they were scheduled to get paid for that year and what have you. People that wanted to sit out the season even got compensation. But if the NFL can go through a full season with decent ratings at the least, with the 17 games set to come, everything is still going through, I think it's fair to, if they can work something out, to actually keep the cap stable, because at the end of the day, they did get a full season and media brands are still looking at really big TV deals. Now, I don't think necessarily should go beyond it, but I think it's an interesting point. But Mark, I actually really wanted to get your thoughts on this question.
If it's going to go down or if it's going to go up, like...
No, I mean, like, should the NFL sit there and go, you know what, even though the cap is built off, I think it's roughly 48.5% of all revenues, you know what, we're going to cop a hit to the league to our profits this year, because the NFL does make a profit, and actually put money back to each team and go, we're going to keep the salary cap stable for 2021.
Won't it really depend on like the fans coming back in the stands and a lot of revenue behind that and different kind of TV deals and stuff? Like I know there's going to be a lot of like cap stuff with our Steelers, and if our Steelers can't get certain things done if it goes down, but at the same time, if the cap affects everyone, all 32 teams, so I don't think it's going to be a massive issue. I'm not really sure. Like, you know, I'm not the cap guy. You've got the cap room, so you know a lot more than I do. My only really opinion is like, whatever happens, we're all in the same field. So, you know, we're all doing the same things as Steeler fans and Steeler players, and there are 32 teams that have to play by the rules, and that's why every year every single team has a chance to win Super Bowl, except the Bengals, really.
Everyone knows Mark hates the Bengals. Actually, you know what? We've actually got a Browns fan in the house. Welcome. We're happy for any fans of all NFL teams to come, as long as everyone plays it straight and, you know, it's respectful to everyone else. That's awesome. That's a really great question. We'll actually look at that in part 2, where we're going to do a bit of an early preview of you know, predicting what 2021 might look like for the Steelers season. But look, let's crack into it. So as we said, the Steelers offseason, and the title of today's show is about the number one. So let's just recap where we've been for the last couple of weeks. The Steelers, the number one draft pick, is the biggest question for the Steelers right now. What are we going to do with it? What's the position? We've now got one less tight end in our locker room as well, with Vance McDonald retiring. So that puts pressure on you know, our number one tight end, if you look at it that way, in Eric Ebron. We've got one new offensive coordinator. We're yet to sign our new one quarterback coach. We have signed one new TE coach in Alfredo. Not Francisco, Alfredo. Yeah. Well, not Fernando too. I think Jeff called him Francisco in his podcast, and Fernando in the preview. But it is a confusing name. I was like Brian. I just think chicken Alfredo when I hear that. So yeah, let's hopefully they're not soft like chickens when it comes to the play next season. We've got 1 year of a lower salary cap. That's something we haven't seen in a lot of years. We've got questions like, who will be the number one wide receiver if Juju goes? So we've got, who will be our number one running back now with Connor entering free agency? Who will be our starting lineman? Who will, you know, and as I said, who will back up our tight end Eric Ebron? So there's so many questions. Mark, let's crack into it though.
Let's go.
Who will be our number one wide receiver if Juju goes?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I knew you were going to ask me that question first.
But,
I knew it.
I know. And so, is it someone on the Steelers roster, or is it someone not on the Steelers roster? And you can play both sides of the coin.
I've been thinking about this for the last few days, and I think you almost have to sign Juju to be number one. But at the same time, like, are you going to have Claypool, Deontay, or Washington be number one? I just don't think you are. I don't think they're number one receivers, and I think Claypool is an awesome talent, but I don't think he's number one just yet. I think you almost. I really don't know. I had a bit of a thought today where, you know, Big Ben needs that Heath Miller again. He needs that. Who do we have? Do we have Lance Moore for a little bit? He was a Steeler, wasn't he? I think like that guy that's like if Ben can't go anywhere or doesn't know where to go, he's got that number one receiver. Doesn't matter how talented you are with Claypool, you need to be on par with Big Ben all the time. So I don't know who they were, like who would be number one. I don't think it's anyone in that locker room. They might bring someone from another club, do a trade or buy someone, because I just think you need someone with to be familiar with Big Ben. So in those 3rd and 5s, 3rd and 7s, when we have to get the first
third and really longs.
Yeah, and what we always get, or like when we're our backs against the wall and Big Ben has that guy. And I think for a little bit, even when AB was there, Juju was that guy. He was that guy for Big Ben doing all those things. So that question is such a hard question because it really depends who can step up. Now, I don't know if you want Claypool to step up because then will they, double him or take away him out of the game? And then you've got to have the other two blokes step up and maybe another rookie receiver. So it's a very, very interesting question. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, look, and it's interesting to see what people put in the live chat. I'm going to go a bit controversially. I do think they need to bring in a vet, whatever they do. Putting Juju aside, I think they need to bring in a vet as we talk about that maturity. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion around Ike Hilliard piece, and obviously he's a younger coach, understands those guys a lot more of that players coach. But controversially, I don't think we need a number one. And I also think, and Jeff talked about this, Jeffrey Benedict, in the curtain call, show this week, and I thought he covered it really, really well. Juju. The Steelers didn't use Juju in the right way. So analyzing his 2020 season is difficult when you're not actually using him deep down the field. Equally, he does thrive off a number one, as you said there. We talk about AB, but if we've got Claypool and you've got Juju, and Claypool's learning that, as you said, he's not yet a number one wide receiver. And Ezra's saying in the slot, Juju is amazing in the slot. We didn't see enough of that this year, but. Do you really need one? Can you have a 1A and a 1B? Can you have two 2As, as some people are saying? I mean, Ben, Stephen K.A. in the last 24 hours, I'm not usually a fan of him, whatever, but he did put it right. If you're not going to throw for 4,200 to 4,500 yards, it's going to cost you when it comes to AFC Championship game, NFL, Super Bowls and what have you. So for me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, if you can spread the ball. So this season, we had 3 wide receivers that caught for over 800 yards. If you had those same numbers again, maybe one person has 1,000 yards, and then you've got a 4th or 5th wide receiver or tight end that's getting 600-700 yards there again. That's a nice little pool to spread the offense. And equally, if we're going to have a running game that's strong, do we really need to have this classification of a number one wide receiver? Now, you look at it this season, if the salary cap's lower, obviously, you want to save some money. Juju doesn't come back. But I just sit there and I think this offense, if you are bringing Big Ben back, signing Juju to me is more important than signing Bud Dupree. Because from what I'm sitting here saying is that when I look at Bud Dupree, he's going to be a lot more than the $6 million that we saw coming out this week. You're not going to just now bench Alex Highsmith. That makes no sense. So if you can work out a deal, like to me, apart from Cameron Sutton, my mind is on Juju because as much as we love this defense will be good, like even without Bud Dupree. But if we're going to beat a team like Kansas City, if we're going to beat a team like the Buffalo Bills when they're not at home, you got to be able to score points. And to me, that starts with who you got at wide receiver. That's just the way I'm seeing it.
See, I think you're correct there, but one thing I would probably disagree with, and I might change my opinion next week or in 2 months, but from what I saw, I've been watching a little bit of past Super Bowls, and I think the reason the number one, being number one receiver, and what I saw in that drive with Big Ben to Holmes, throughout that drive and that catch, I just think, and what we said all year, both you and I said, pick your poison, and it didn't matter who you threw to. But I think sometimes with how Big Ben plays, and it's coming into maybe his last year, which I still want him here. I know, like I've even on my Steelers Nation Australia page, I've put 2 years ago when he was injured, I thought he was done. Now I think the way that Big Ben plays is if he has a number one, then they can move the ball around the field a lot easier. And he can trust someone, and that drive in itself shows you how Holmes turned up and won them the game. So I see what you're saying, where yes, we have 4 or 5 receivers, and maybe if Juju doesn't come back, then we have, you know, a rookie and someone else in there. But then where is Ben's, you know, most comfortable receiver?
But that is Juju. And that's the thing that I think about. We think this season, Juju didn't necessarily have over 1,000 yards, but when Ben needed to hit a target and get key first downs or start to get momentum, Juju caught it. I mean, there were passes that he caught where he'd have 2 or 3 blokes with him. He's been in the middle off the slant. I mean, yeah, for me, that short passing game and what Juju was able to do, and those weeks in, weeks out where he saw, you know, several times where he'd catch like 9 out of 13 targets or 10 out of 13 or what have you. For me, our idea of a number 1 wide receiver isn't, you know, AJ Green in his prime, Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, those sorts of players, Andre Johnson when he was at the Texans. You know, we've got these ideas of what this number 1 is, but does a number 1 actually have to be a number 1 by getting the most touchdowns and the most yards per week? No, it's your number 1 go-to. And that's my point, is that if you're bringing Big Ben back at a lower salary cap, bring back people that he's familiar with. And for me, when you've got Claypool and he's going into his 2nd year, you've got Johnson going into his 3rd, you know, it's just a bit of a, I don't know, I'm a bit uneasy about that from the locker room.
So your argument, Matty, is basically choosing Juju over Bud Dupree. You can't sign both. You have to sign one or the other. Would that be
not with 20 free agents and how far they're over the salary cap? No,
I get what you're saying. So you got Juju come back, and we have a great receiving core, which they did really well this year, and it's only going to get better. So in that point, I think you are correct, and we have to keep Juju there. I would still like to see. I'm a defensive man. I would like to see TJ and Bud play again, even though coming off the injury, and have a prove it year and do it all again. Then, like you said, it's either one or the other, right? So if we have Bud, and then when there's no Juju, who's going to be that guy to step up? Because I think that receiving core needs a bit of leadership as well. I know Juju is 24,
but
25.
What I'd be doing,
pardon?
But what I'd be doing though is saying, Juju, if we're re-signing you, like this TikToking stuff, the rest of it, like, no, you are expected to step up. You're the leader in this locker room now. You step up. That's that. Like, no ifs and buts about it. Like, you play ball, you grow up, you act. You're not on a rookie deal anymore. Like, you act your contract. That's what I'd be expecting.
He's no Hines Ward, but he's very physical. Like, Hines Ward was a presence in that locker room. You thought, okay, we got Hines Ward, and he was the guy that in Super Bowl and 40 and all those kind of things, where he was just there. He just caught the ball and he was there. So I think that's what a lot of fans, I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody, but a lot of fans might think Juju might not be mature enough to be number 1, because we haven't, I don't think anyone in the NFL has labeled him number 1. Even if Juju goes to another team, they're still going to count him as number 2. Like you said, like the Johnsons and Stephon Diggs and players like that. So for me, if we go the route of Juju, we need him, to step up and have a better mentality, and to really take this team by the horn and say, look, this is my team. I'm a Steeler, and I've got Big Ben throwing me the rock. Like, that's unbelievable to have Big Ben in your corner. And what else can you ask for? And you got Claypool on the edges. You got Washington, who can be a great third down guy as well. Or DJ can do some crazy routes. So, and maybe we need more of a kick on the offense. And like you said, with Alex Highsmith, why you got to play him? You can't not play the guy. So, yeah, this is very, very interesting discussion for both parties, really.
Yeah, 100%. And then it leads into the next question, because, I mean, you know, maybe you don't need Juju if you've got a good running game, but the Steelers had the 32nd best running game in the league. Notice I looked at the positives there, 32nd, because it doesn't get any worse. So, you know, the only way is up. You can't get much worse. I mean, you can statistically, but, you know, all things being equal, probably not. So with that news this week, obviously re-signed the running back coach, Faulkner. Again, I think the preview guys, and might have touched on this as well, that really shows you, or Jeff in his left side, that really shows you the fact that they did think that it was the O-line that was the issue. Obviously fired Sean Surratt. But Mark, that was my next question for you. It's along the same lines. who with our number one running back for next year? Because it's not going to be Benny Snell Jr., right? Are we going to look to the draft? Do you think they're going to get who they need in the draft, or do you think they're going to go out and get a vet? Because like I saw a social media post yesterday that was just more of a graphic, and it had 3 landing spots for Mark Ingram, and it had him in all the jerseys. And I know he's old and a bit battered, but like he did kind of look good in. I'm not saying that I want him, but I'm just saying he did kind of look good in the Steelers jersey. Just saying.
It's too early for these hard questions. Another really hard question is who is going to be our number one running back? Who is going to set the stage and push forward and do everything Steeler related to move that rock part more than 2 yards? It's not Benny, but Benny Snell can be a good second. McFarlane can be a good third. Will Connor be there? We've given the bloke a lot of chances and he's played well. He's been injured a few times, but I don't know. Do we go with the draft? Like, this is another thing where I think we just need to work on the O-line and get that more cohesive unit together, and then put anyone behind there and make them a superstar. But that's the thing too. Like, do we bring in a free agent? Like you said, I don't know if we bring one of those veteran guys in to this is really off the cuff, and I don't think it's going to happen. And don't tear away my Steeler card. But I would love to see like Frank Gore in there. Like, just bring Gore in. Like, he's second in yards. Like, this guy is like being a great NFL player. I don't care if he played 10 downs. Frank Gore is just like one of those players like Larry Fitz, like a Hines Ward. He is a bloke that you look up to and will give everyone else a great opportunity to succeed. I'll probably get hated in a live chat, but I don't care. Bring in Frank Gore, put him in the black and gold, and see what he can do.
Frank Gore reminds me of those times when, as a kid, I'd be playing Monopoly and I'd start like getting people bankrupt, and then I'd make them just give me properties so that until I had every property on the board. The game would go for like 5 hours. That's what Frank Gore was like.
Are you saying Frank Gore's Old Kent Road? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, he's Old Kent Road. He's Old Kent Road in the English version, and also he's just trying to get the jersey of every team. But that's hilarious. Oh, you crack me up there. In the live chat. Isn't Gore like 90? Yes.
90 on the Madden ratings is really good. No, I'm only joking. But look,
he hasn't been 90 on Madden ratings for about 13 editions.
I just think like you said, you need someone, a veteran leadership in there, or in this offense in general. I think anyway. So you don't have to bring in Gore. Like, I think even Adrian Peterson is like 37 now or something. Like, these guys are old school, but we just need something to where the offense is fired up. And I think it starts with our O-line, and then we can move forward from there. I
mean, I like the guy from NC, like State, I think it is, like Javonte Williams. I mean, for me, he's fantastic. If you can get him in the draft, I don't want to spend a first round draft pick this draft on a running back. So if we can do a second, then that would be awesome. Look at Ezra. Absolute, he's always in the live chats across the BTSC podcast. I don't want no more short backs. Najee 6'2". That's an interesting one. I understand what Ezra's saying there, actually. There's a bit of size. Like, I want a 6'2", 225 pounder, just going to go in there and battering ram. I'm with you, Ezra. But don't discount the little guys. They can still do things too. So it's an interesting one. A lot of people in the live chat are saying, they're going
off of me. They're going off. There's one here from Ezra too. He says, bring in Frank Gore, Beast Mode, and Adrian Peterson. Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring back 2008. Let's run them all in there. Run them through at once. Let's do it.
That's so. But it's an interesting question though, because there are some decent running backs. Here's a bit of a snapshot of the current forecast running backs free agency this year. Kenyon Drake. I'm actually quite a fan of Kenyon Drake, but I think you're going to have to pay him too much than what I think a running back's worth at 27. Todd Gurley, I don't know. I think he's a bit washed up. Tevin Coleman, James White, Matt Breida, Mike Davis, Carlos Hyde, who I think is a bit spent too. There are some names there. So you go get a running back in the second round. You go look at what you can get in free agency on a small deal. Can you get value at $2 or $3 million for a running back that usually would go for like a $5 million contract? Who knows? But I do think that these questions feed into the wider, what are we going to do on the offense? What are we going to do on that offensive line? So, Mark, do you think if he's not retiring, Do you think they bring back Villanueva? Villanueva or Matt Filer? Matt Filer. Villanueva or Matt Filer?
What year is Big Al going into? Is it like 8?
This is year 8, I think. Yes.
8.
I'll pull that up for you, but yeah, I'm pretty sure it's year 8.
I'm not sure, but this was brought up a few days ago on one of the BTSC here. They said that pretty much. It might have been Dave saying that Big Al has pretty much been forgotten. Like he's done every single snap. I think it was one of his stats since like 20.
Oh yeah, he's done 3,450 snaps or something.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Like this is the one part I really need to watch more, and it's so hard. It's so hard to watch the O-line when everything, the camera doesn't follow the O-line on a big play for a 30-yard pass. I'd be happy to bring him back and maybe have would Dotson be next to him? Dotson, and then who's our center? Like there's so many questions. Like this is like one of the off seasons where what do we have? 20 free agents? Like you can almost field a squad with that as well. So you might have more of an opinion than I do. I really don't know with Big Al. I probably should appreciate him more at the time while watching him, and he's been a great player and he's a massive unit, and to do 3,400 snaps in a row, that's unbelievable.
Yeah. No, it is. He'll be going into his 7th season, so I just pulled it up. But I mean, as you say there, those snaps are crazy. And to me, he only led in 3 sacks last year. That's a good season. I just worry about this thing that a lot of the guards and interior guys find it really hard to actually play with him. And to me, that's a bit of an issue. But if you can get Al on a cut price deal, I mean, awesome. But let's go to who was the number 1 left guard this season when it should have been Kevin Dotson, or moved to Castro, flicked Kevin Dotson on his preferred side at right guard, is Matt Filer. Now, he's someone that's off contract. For me, I'm only bringing him back to play starting O-lineman at right tackle. If not, mate, you're super sub on the offensive line. I don't think they're going to be able to afford to bring him back. But Mark, what are you thinking about Matt Filer?
I was going to say as well depth, because I think that game with the Browns, you had to play Dotson. No matter what, I think Dotson will be in a starting uniform. Matt Filer, another good player, but like I said, I don't really know too much about the O-line. All I know is that Pouncey was doing great until he threw that ball over his head. I don't know. I think you can't get rid of all these players, though. I think at some stage you have to count on depth and, to be familiar with the squad and how the Steelers play and to build that cohesive unit. Look, if Filer goes, I think over a lot of our Steeler fans' head, it would be like, oh, okay, then bring in someone next. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
maybe bring a young buck from the draft and start him day one. So you've got you still got the Castro in there. You're going to have who's going to be our right tackle? Who's going to be that bloke? It's going to be Chooks, right?
You'd have to think it's going to be Chooks. I think Chooks has earned it. I mean, a lot of people are saying Zach Banner comes back, you get him on a minimum after that ACL, and then he won the camp battle last year. To me, Chooks showed up. I mean, give Chooks a bit of credit there. He actually showed up. Equally, if you draft a really good left tackle, right? You draft a really good left tackle. Do you consider whether offensive line play is something that, I'm better at the guard stuff than the tackle stuff, but can they move Al, or can they put that left tackle on the right depending on who they bring in? I mean, what are the options? But to me, Chooks stood up. I mean, I just think back to the way Chooks stood up in 2019 against the LA Rams. I just remember that game when he stood up, and I think there was those blocks that he put on Aaron Donald at different points. I just thought, you know what, mate, you turned up, you showed out, can't question that. So, I mean, it's an interesting discussion. But look, to close out part 1 of the show, because today's show is all about the number 1, and we've talked a little bit about that first round draft pick. Mark, what do you want the Steelers to do with that number 1 draft pick? Well,
I think, like I said, because I still want to learn more about the offensive line, and I'm getting better every year, but it is very hard to watch. But I think I want to see someone on the O-line, one of the big blokes in the college football that can just pound for pound put someone on their butt like this, rock them and build someone next to Dotson. And if we bring back Al, then you start to build a good line, and we didn't get sacked as much last year, only 13, 14. So if that line can be good together and, they can all learn together, and they're getting, a bit long in the tooth there. They're getting a bit older on the O-line. So I think you have to. And even the years I know from watching the Steelers, even back in the day when I was like younger and I didn't understand pretty much anything about football, they always seemed just to do the O-line. And I was always looking for a flashy player like the receivers or the running backs. So bring an O-line guy, and we'll probably I won't have any idea who he is. But then I'll go and look up film, and I'll see him, smash some DB, or he'll be downfield and do some great blocks and stuff like that. Get that set, because we need that for Big Ben to succeed, and that's gonna, that's your focal point of this offense. What do you reckon coming up in the draft? When is it? It's coming into April, isn't it?
Yep, that's right. I think it kicks off April 29th. I think it is April 30th for you and I. We actually got the day off work, so I can watch live. Yes, love the draft. So I want to bring up what AJ, because I was saying similar on Twitter. I was actually saying similar in a BTSC Slack channel, and then I saw a Twitter feed with it. Michael Beck from Behind the Steel Curtain, the deputy editor, was talking about as well. Now, I like the idea of what Jeff is saying, and I don't mean to shove that away. I'm just sort of putting it to that side. But I like the idea of trading up if you can get him for Trey Lance, but I just don't. I think the Steelers have got to give away too much in too important year. If you're bringing Ben back, you don't do it. I know next year's quarterback class is a question, but again, there's going to be a bunch of guys off contract then. It might be 2023 draft before the Steelers are drafting the next franchise quarterback. Like, that quarterback might not even be sitting there in college football right now. But if I'm a big believer in best player available, and I think if we look at the Steelers, they are too. They fill needs in free agency and veteran minimums and practice squads and what have you, and then they go into the draft and they get who they think they can get, and if they miss out, they don't get them. And that was covered in the shows this week as well. But this is the draft pick. When you've got a pick at 24, when most guys are going to be off the table, right? You've got a chance to trade back, acquire more picks in a year with a tighter salary cap, and a year when you've got 20 free agents. This is the year to do it, because the Steelers fans, we saw what the Steelers were able to do last year with no first-round draft pick. Yes, okay, we acquired Minkah Fitzpatrick with that first-round draft pick. Great pick with that, proven player, what have you. But this year, if we look at the value that we could get in the second and the third round at key positions, we talk about running back. J.K. Dobbins, Jonathan Taylor, drafted in the second round. Javonte Williams is probably an early second round. Can we push back? Equally, as soon as you go to the second round, you can commit less money to different positions as well. So I like the concept. I don't know whether I'd pick in the exact order of what AJ's saying, but there's such value in this year. For instance, tight end position. You've got, I think it's Freemouth. He's probably a first rounder. Brevin Jordan, who would do wonders for this offense in terms of a vertical threat. He's sitting there in the second round. There's a bunch of guys in the third and fourth that are available as well. And we can do a bit of preview about that in coming shows. We talked about running there in Javonte Williams. There's some great cornerbacks in this draft as well, or safeties that are around that second or third, those second and third rounds equally, that some of those guards or tackles are going to drop. Maybe you just go back to the end of the first, but I think this idea of acquiring an extra second, an extra third, or moving back in the first and still getting a second or a third, there are going to be teams that are desperate, that are absolutely desperate this season. And when it comes to this draft, let's leverage. It goes back to what a quote I said in Caproom, the first one I did around Warren Buffett's quote. It's when others are being greedy, you need to be a bit more miserly. You need to be considered. When others are being fearful, you should go out there and be a bit greedy. And so this is actually the year that I think you might want to be a little bit considered and go get those picks. But look, that wraps up part one for this week's show. It's absolutely flown by. If you're on the YouTube or just stay with us for a couple of seconds. And if you're on the audio side, flick over to part two, where we'll talk everything, continue with this theme of number one, talk about 2021, and take a few questions as well. And we're back on Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matt Peverell, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mark Davison. Mark, picking up where we left off, what are your thoughts on what I was suggesting that we do with the first-round draft pick?
To be honest, my head's blown away. There's so much in there. Like all I got from that really was if we trade back and do all those kind of things, we have to build that's depth, right? And I'm very fortunate, I think, as many Steelers fans, I never want to see a number 1 draft pick unless we get it via a great trade, or like you don't want our team to lose and go 2-14 or 1-15 or 0-16. You just don't want to see it. Those teams that draft from 1 to 10, they're there for 5 to 10 years. They're just in a rotation of just being there over and over and over again. So I never want to see that. I think you can always find value in the draft. That's why I think the draft is like one of the best days of the year. Even though I don't really understand most of it, I watch all of it, and then I get hyped around our players. I see the big guys get the draft picks wrong. I see they erupt when Al Davis or the Raiders usually go and get the fastest guy when they should have got someone else, and the speculations. I was never a big fan of like the redo draft when they do it a year later and they say, well, this player should have went here. I never liked that.
I hate that because it's anachronistic. Like you can't just sit there and be like, you can't just sit there and be like, oh, well, if we'd done such and such, like, how do you know that? Like,
yeah, I don't know. I just think, there's so many things. If Philip Rivers went here or blah blah blah, it doesn't make any sense. The reason why we watch the draft is to be surprised and see what happens. Like it's my 3rd best day of the year. Super Bowl, draft and kickoff it's all up there because and it's good to see the young fellas have a chance. Like there's nothing better than that. Although there are some years when the number 1 pick goes to a team and they don't want to be there and they have a bit of a cry and you're like, all right, mate, cheer up. Like you go into a team, like even if you don't like the team or it's not a great team, you can still make it succeed. Similar to like now with Watson, the whole debate there, or trade me away. Have some cement, mate, and just figure it out and build the team around yourself and have pride in where you are. And like I said, I heard one of the analysts say, don't turn this into basketball where they want to trade every season and they're all going everywhere. Yeah. It's look, you're there, and I get what you want to do, great for yourself, but imagine that locker room with Watson now saying, I don't want to be there, get me out. And then Houston's like, nah, we'll keep you. It's fine. And then how do you go to work the next day and say, g'day, fellas, like I'm here to throw the ball? And they're like, didn't you want out last year? Like it's not good for the locker room. And that's another big part of, NFL teams' successes, like with the Chiefs now and even the Bucks to say that the Bucks now, holy dooly, like they got a lot of key pieces and they're back in the Super Bowl. But yeah, for your draft question, I never want to be down the bottom. Being 24th is I think still get a solid player. Even if I don't know who they are or where they're coming from, because I've tried to, I don't know about you, Matty, I've tried to follow the college football, but there's 111 colleges. There's so many teams to follow, and I think you've got to pick one division. That's all you got to pick. Who are they?
I'm hook 'em horns all the way. Texas Longhorns. That's my team. Longhorns, man. Longhorns, man, through and through. Awesome. Cade Stearns. Let's draft him 3rd round. Safety. Pittsburgh Steelers with the 3rd pick of the NFL draft select Cade Stearns.
Oh, how good is that part 2 with the NFL draft and the music comes up and hopefully they can have
the music. The amount of times I've wanted to play it on this show, but you can't with the NFL rights and what have you. But like,
and they'd boo Goodell every time Goodell would come in there. That poor bloke, like you just can't do it. He could do 1,000 things right.
There is a lot of things about that bloke, but poor ain't one of them. He's making a monster. Absolute monster. But I mean, you've raised some legitimate stuff there, though, Mark. It's like, what are you going to do with that? Like, the draft is so important. Like, what are you going to do with it? That the college game, who's going to do well here? Like, and it's something that the live chat's talking about this right now as well. Like, who's legitimate? You don't trade up. Who are the players that are going to do the right thing and get the Steelers advantage? Who are we going to bring in the O-line? Like, it just raises a bunch of different questions, and there's no right or wrong answer either, because as you say, it's hard to look back and go, oh, we should have drafted so and so here.
Got a question for you. So the person who we do draft, are they going to be immediate impact? Because we do have a great team, and we fell short of the Browns, and we went 12-4, but we still have a lot of once the pieces all level out, will this draft pick be an immediate impact wherever they go? What do you reckon?
Okay, so I've got 2 Dave answers for this one. One is depends which position you draft, right? But the other one, and I think we've got to look really seriously at this, is you draft someone that is capable of starting as soon as possible, and then you hope potentially that they may not have to. Example, Alex Highsmith. Do most Steelers fans really sit there when he was drafted last year? Everyone said, awesome prospect, could be really good, some higher than others. You know, Shannon, one of the BTSC writers, really high on him. He even predicted the pick. I'm really high on Highsmith. People that are regular listeners for us know that. I constantly talk about him. I feel like we're talking about every show just because I like him so much. But like, you didn't draft him to necessarily start the amount of snaps that he actually played this season. So you've got to draft players that can step in there and be filled. Because as we saw with Ben halfway through the Seahawks game 2 of the 2019 season, as we saw with Bud go down this year, as we, saw with Ryan Shazier a few years back as well when he went down awfully in that Bengals game, you've got to have guys for next man up. And it's one thing for the Steelers and the coaches to spit next man up. But if you actually don't have the next man up, it doesn't mean anything. And it's
what do you mean? We had Cassius March. He was next man up. He played really well.
Righto. He won't be back. He won't be back. See you later, mate.
Had like 3 weeks, and yeah, you can see. But there it is. You can see a massive difference from Bud and Alex Highsmith. And when you saw, there was a few plays I saw Cassius Marsh play, and you're like, wow, like there is a big football difference to how he's playing, and how he wasn't shedding the blockers, and how he got pushed around, and maybe he didn't know the defense, but at the same time it didn't matter because he was getting like pushed out of the way, and there was a few runs that went his way, and the next minute they're scoring TDs. So yeah, next man up is that mentality, but you've got to put some value to it as well, like you said, Highsmith or whoever comes in. I would like to see them, whoever they draft, number one, if it's O-line or whatever, like you said, maybe, work them into the 4 or 5 games, because what we realized this season, and maybe even next season, as you told me, it might go to 17. It's a massive season, and you got to be ready for the whole thing. And the Steelers they're not ready for the whole season. We did 11 in a row, and then that was it.
But you've hit it. That's the next one. One extra game. What does one extra game mean as well? I mean, this is the thing, because 8 and 8 don't cut it anymore. So Mike Tomlin is going to have to win one more game a year to make sure that he keeps that record intact as well of never having a losing season. And that's the thing. Steelers fans won't accept a losing season. And I think the comments that we saw from Art Rooney this week, I mean, you can read into them what you want, you can accept them what you want, you can think he's blowing smoke, but I do genuinely feel like the Steelers organization understands that fans are frustrated. Fans are really frustrated that there's not been one Super Bowl in the last decade. Not one. We haven't had a Super Bowl appearance, in such a long time as well. So the Steelers just expect that bit more. But Mark, as always, it's time for our usual segment, Slinging the Slang. Just like we like to see Big Ben sling the rock, we like to sling the slang. Do you have a word or Aussie phrase for the listeners this week?
I've really got nothing again this week, Matty. I didn't do my preparation like I should have, but we'll just go with one. I'm not even sure if it's an Aussie slang or it might be a UK slang. But have you ever heard of one called Bloomin' Hell?
Bloomin' Hell? I've heard Bloomin' Hell.
Yeah, Bloomin'. What does Bloomin' even mean? Like, that just means like far out, doesn't it? Like, or oh my gosh, or like something really, really bad, and of not good values. So I think when we get frustrated, or if we were to, trade up to number 1 draft pick and lose all our drafts, I think you'd yell out a bloomin' hell. Like, why did you do that? Sorry, Steeler Nation out there. I wasn't really prepared this week. I've even got a book that I look at and try and do some slang. But I think throughout our show anyway, like, it's quite funny. We've been doing this quite a bit now. Throughout our show, we do slang. I might have said 3 or 4 things in this whole entire conversation before we get to the slang part. And it's like when you tell a kid to dance and he's already danced and then he freezes. Like, that's kind of like me at the moment.
Deer in the headlights. Deer in the headlights, mate. Mine for this week, and look, you know what? It's probably, I'm pretty sure most people would have heard this. I don't know whether it's Australian exclusive, but I just pull your head in. like pull your head in, pull your socks up, knuckle down, so it's just basically pull your head in, be quiet, do what needs to be right. Like, for example, if the Steelers re-sign Juju Smith-Schuster, it's pull your head in, mate, get with the program, just stay focused, just focus on football, pull your head in, no more of this dancing on logos sort of stuff. So yeah, I was sort of thinking, pull your head in. That's what we need to do as an organization. We just got to pull it back, think very clearly, and then we can head into 2021 in the best shape possible.
What about what Shield 91 says here? You can answer. You gave me one last week. What are budgie smugglers, Matty? You got any PG rating for that?
So budgie smugglers are like, I would say Speedos, which is what we use the slang for, because that's the brand that sort of made them famous. They're like the swimwear that men wear that are just like basically your underpants, so the budgie
like for swimming.
But we call them budgie smugglers because, if they're a lot of people that wear them, they're a bit tight, and so therefore the male genitalia looks like you're smuggling a budgie,
like a little budgie. Yeah. Another one here with Donald says, what's that? Go Yenna? What's going on, Donald? What's going on, mate? What is that word?
Go Yenna?
I don't know. I don't know.
Does it mean goanna? Do you think it means goanna, like the lizard?
Goanna?
Yeah, like goanna. Maybe.
I don't know. I'm not too sure. Maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. I'm not too sure. Goanna.
Donald, you have to give us a bit more.
Yeah, come on, Donald. What's going on, mate? I have no idea what you're saying.
And sorry, Double HH, I'm going to correct you there. No way. Vegemite is the bomb. Vegemite cheese toasted sandwich or grilled cheese, as you guys would say over there in the US, flogs Marmite.
Here it is, though, right? Here it is. So Matty, are you a Vegemite fan?
Oh, 100%. I don't even do butter. Right. I don't even do butter, mate.
No, I can't stand Vegemite. So there's it's 50-50 in Australia. Like, you have people who love Vegemite and will eat it out of the jar, and me who I will just throw the jar in the bin.
So Jeff Hartman's just messaged me, Mark. You're now again a former podcaster for BTSC.
What did I do this time? What have I done?
You bagged out the Australian Vegemite on the touchdown under. Sorry.
He doesn't need Vegemite.
You got a timeout, 2-week timeout. Nah, I'm just joking. How can you not like Vegemite? It's even Steelers colors.
I don't know. I'm telling you.
I know why. It's because Kraft bought Vegemite, and you're a fan.
Robert Kraft. Oh, he's got a fair few problems, hasn't he? Oh, geez. We're getting off topic here, mate. Let's go back
to Steelers. So, one thing, just before we get into one of the segment we want to go through in a sec, Mark, just one final question to do with the number one. Who is the one free agent that the Pittsburgh Steelers have this offseason, regardless of cap number, whatever? Who's the one guy that you want to sign?
Mike Hilton.
Okay, and because I'm in the Cam Sutton camp. For me, Mike Hilton got burned by Jarvis Landry in the wildcard round. I'm like, no.
I don't know. I just like him. I just like the way he plays. I like the way he got those 3 sacks in the Houston game. I like the way he's come up from, talent aside. I just like the guy, what he's been doing, and give him another 3 or 4 year contract and see what else he can do with this Steeler defense. I think he's part of the Steeler defense. I think off the edge, and he can go into coverage, and maybe he can learn a bit more coverage skills. I don't want to see him leave just yet. I think he would be the one that would hurt the most. Like, I would like to buy a Mike Hilton jersey. I think he's got great tackling skills. I think he's used not enough in certain areas. I think he's similar to Troy. Like, he can do his own little thing, but he's not Troy. I'm not saying he's Troy at all. I just like the way he plays football. And I think, there's not too many corners out there like him. And like other people have said, you can't take Mike to another NFL team, and maybe he wouldn't work out. But I think coming from next to nowhere, and he was like in the practice squad, and he proved that you can do it. You can make the top team. So I think with Mike there, and we bring back some other guys, or if Highsmith starts working, and it's going to be how that defense is going to function. So that's my guy I think you have to sign. I think as well that he could be easily let go. They could either sign Sutton or Mike. There won't be 2 people being signed at that position. So it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. For me, it's just slot corners are expensive. I'd rather see them pay Sutton. That's just my opinion because I just think he can do a bit more at the cornerback position, like in a few other ways the Steelers use their cornerback, and it's got a bit more versatility. Again, that means if you draft, different types of safeties or cornerbacks, you can integrate them as well. Cap's tight. Actually, in fact, I referenced what I would do with Cameron Sutton in this week's Cap Room, so you can go back and listen to that. So that's the new weekly Wednesday show. I'm going to give it a little bit of a plug that I do, where I just sort of take half an hour to look at all things Steelers salary cap. But just before we get into the next segment, I wanted to bring up, there were 2 Aussie questions as well. Donald did mean goanna. So that is that's quite a large lizard. So we also have blue tongues, which obviously a blue tongue, but they're about, they can be about that big to even bigger. Goannas, I think, are even bigger from there. So, and then Ali Howard species 5618. So that's an interesting name there. Mark and Matty, what do Australians think about the movie Crocodile Dundee? Real question.
Well, just one word, it's solid. It's a great movie.
100%.
It's an awesome movie to watch, and it like Dundee's running around New York, and like the original, and he has nowhere where to go, and some guys try and stand him up, and he ends up fighting him. He's just got that character about him. He's just a cool human being.
I saw an ad the other day, a movie ad for like a replay of Coming to America with Eddie Murphy. And it just sort of got me thinking. I'm like, it's kind of like an Aussie Coming to America in a way. Like, it's pretty funny, but it's so great. You watch him walking around the subway with, this knife and whatever. And I think, I don't know, to me, it embodies that thing, Mark. I don't know, where as Aussies, when we travel abroad, because it's such a big thing for us before COVID to travel, like, there's a common saying that most people won't be aware of, that most Aussies have been to more countries around the world than they have states of Australia. So it's really interesting that we travel, but you do sort of feel, a bit more relaxed and a bit more chill. You've got to have your wits about you, obviously, no matter where you go. But it's an interesting one. It just sort of, it's sometimes how you do feel.
I definitely have. I've been to America 7 times, and I've been to 17, 18, 19 countries or something like that. When I used to be a big travel before the COVID thing. When I go to America, it just reminds me of like stuff on TV. So when, you see Paul Hogan there, and he just got that, that suave about him, and just like Australiana. That's what when we get to New York, we're like, whoa, I can't believe this. When I was walking in New York with my dad 2 years ago in 2019, there were certain points where we just had to go with the crowd, because the crowd was moving like one direction, and you couldn't even go left. You just went right because you're all going into Times Square. So it is crazy out that way. Like if you're if you're from the bush, like you and I aren't from the bush, we're from the coastal areas. If you're from the bush and never been overseas before, it would be such a different like culture mix to see New York and like Miami and things of that nature, stuff like that. When I was in Miami, I know going to buy a beer along the waterfront, it cost me about $19, and that's $36 in Australia. Like that was for one beer. So that was just like, it's just a culture shock, really. But I love it. Like, hopefully I can get back over there this year or next year, and we can do a behind BTSC tour.
Yeah,
go to every pub. Be all
right. So look, let's move on to something else that Mark and I wanted to do, which a lot of you are going to sit here and go, this is absolutely ridiculous. These Aussies are just being absolute larrikins. And if you haven't heard us use larrikins before as Aussie slang, you can Google that one. But what we want to do now is, when obviously we don't know the full schedule in terms of who the Steelers are going to play next year, but we thought, why not put it out there and just get some sentiment, and you guys can feed in too once and with your sort of records after we've sort of listed all the different teams. But we're going to do super quick fire. I'm going to name each of the teams, Mark, that the Steelers are playing next season. And obviously we've got the guys in the division, so you'll have to, it might be the Steelers win both games. Steelers, they split them or they lose both. But we're going to go through based on everything we know today and pick what the Steelers will do next season against their opponents and get an idea and a feel for their record, because it will be very interesting to see how our thoughts change over the offseason, because they change throughout the season. no doubt changed from a lot of the BTSC guys when they were in this sort of point last year when Mark and I weren't even on the radar. We didn't even really know each other. I think I was a member of Steelers Nation Australia, but we didn't really know each other apart from there. Amazing what happens in 6 months. So let's kick it off, Mark. 2021 regular season. Steelers against Baltimore Ravens. What do they do?
They split 1-1.
1-1.
Do you want me to elaborate on these answers? Do you want me to say that?
No. Let's just go one. We'll just go 1-1. So you go 1-1.
1-1.
I think the same. So we're even there. Cincinnati Bengals.
2-0 because I hate them so much.
I think 1-1.
Really?
Yeah. Cleveland Browns.
1-1. Nah, 2-0 because I hate them a lot too. 2-0 again.
I'm going to go 2-0 as well.
I'll beat the Browns.
Buffalo Bills.
Where are they playing at?
I think that one will be at home. It was away this year. But yeah.
Too early anyway. It doesn't matter. But Bills win that one, I think. Bills win.
Okay. I'm going to go Steelers win that one.
Okay.
Beat Bills. Chicago Bears.
This is a tough one. I think we win, but we could lose that one. I think we win that one.
So you're going to win that one? All right. Yep. I count a win there. Chalk up a win there. Denver Broncos.
I think we win that one as well. Just.
I'm going to say we win. No, I'm going to say we lose that one, actually.
Yep.
Detroit Lions.
Win. Their team is just too much up everywhere. So win.
Yeah. I mean, we might be missing a few kneecaps. So David DeCastro, watch out. Big Ben, watch out if you're back. I don't know if anyone else saw that press conference. That was hilarious. I like it, though. I like the attitude. Old school. Green Bay Packers.
Lose. But that depends too. But if Rodgers is still there now, we lose.
Okay. So you don't think Jordan, that if I mean, Rodgers will be there, but let's say it was Jordan Love. You don't think Jordan Love would put up a fight?
I haven't seen him. I haven't seen what he can put to the table, really. So at this point, 31st of January, which is so early, Matt, we lose. I reckon we lose that one.
Okay. How about the Kansas City Chiefs?
Lose. They're just too good. They're turning into Brady. They're turning into the Patriots. They're in our way again. We lose that one.
Okay. I would say we win that one. Defense, Patrick Mahomes gets his face in the dirt. Las Vegas Raiders.
Win that one, I guess, right now. I'm not sure about Derek Carr, so I think we win that one.
I do too. Okay. And then the Los Angeles Chargers.
Chargers, I think they win. They got a great quarterback down there. I think they beat us on that one. They're going to be a better team than last year.
Okay. I think they win that one. New coach, he's going to get done. Minnesota Vikings.
This is the one I got wrong all year. I don't know with the Vikings who they are. I think we lose. I think we lose that one.
I think we do too. I think we do too. I think there's some good players on that team, particularly if it's away. Tennessee Titans.
This is a tough schedule. Have we got the toughest schedule in the NFL?
We have the toughest schedule because we won the AFC North.
Wow.
In the AFC North.
Derrick Henry had 2,000 yards. I think we lose that one again. Based off right now, we lose.
Yep, I agree with you. So, Mark, you've got a record of 5, 6, 7, 8. So you're going 9. You're going 9 right now.
9-7, is it?
Yep. And then I've got
there you go.
2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think the Steelers get to 10 wins next year.
So 10-6. That's still right now, because that's what you said, with all these questions going on, and the number one question is we pretty much have no idea what is going to happen in the next few weeks. But for right now, it's so hard to predict who's who in the zoo and what's going to happen, because a lot of those games like Green Bay, Bills, we've got Vikings, they're a tough team. If we're versing, is the Vikings at home? I'm not too sure if they're at home or they're away. But
the Vikings are 7-9. That's not hard to turn that around. And they're like us. They're in a tough division. Like they've got. I mean, apart from the Detroit, yeah, whatever. But like, you know, Chicago win something about 6 games. The Packers are there. Like that's not an easy division to play in.
But the Vikings either show up 100% or they miss the bus. Like it's either way with that team. Kirk Cousins can go out there and throw 350, or he can throw 4 touchdowns. But if they use as a Dalvin Cook and then the running game, like they have a pretty good offense. Their defense is pretty suspect, but their offense for the Vikings can really tear you apart. And if we're not ready for that game, and then we're gonna, it all depends how ready we are for this season. And I think it might depend as well who we verse in the first week. Like we might come out this week, the first week, and not win a game, or 2 weeks. And was a few years back we lost like 0-4 and we were doing nothing. So it's gonna be a crazy season next year. Like I put all my eggs in this season for the Steelers to win. And I really thought they were going to go a long way to the AFC Championship, which they didn't. They fell apart, but that's in the past now.
And it's interesting. So I've had a few live chats to sort of say, why are we doing this right now? This is ridiculous. It's way too early. We don't have a quarterback, whatever. But this is exactly the point of why we wanted to do this, is that it's about polling where you feel right now. Because it's one thing, as we talked about all the different questions that the Steelers have, and we didn't even cover probably a quarter of the questions that are existing out there about the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. It's important to think about those questions and how do you think they will actually go? Because this is a team that, whilst this was our first playoff appearance in a few seasons, that we're a successful team. We get above 500 record. The organization know how to do it year in, year out. Now, you might, whatever you think about Mike Tomlin and he can't win a Super Bowl, and without the best players in the league and Hall of Famers, or it was Cowher's draft, what have you, or you don't think that Kevin Colbert, he's very hit or miss on the draft, or you're not a fan of what Art Rooney had to say this week. At the end of the day, it's really important to think about what we will actually do come 2021, because the Steelers will find a way. And I think that's what I want to do it, because fan confidence can be low. I mean, I'm very critical. Mike, this. I've always got something negative. I feel like I've got something negative to say. I feel that's what makes you a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. If you don't have one thing negative to say, are you really a Pittsburgh Steelers fan? It's sort of hard. But it's just interesting to think about, because, and I'd like to come back to this, not necessarily we're going to run through the record, but what we roughly think the record will be as the off season goes on, because we're going to be able to actually start gauging and seeing, where they're shaping up. Because it's one thing to go how the Steelers are going to be, and that was very Steelers focused, but what's the rest of the NFL going to be as well? What are the changes that are going to be there? Like was brought up in the live chat, the Chicago Bears are a good team short of a quarterback, 100%. Denver Broncos, they can turn up if they want to. Minnesota, is Kirk Cousins like even in the top 15 quarterbacks in the league? Not for me. I wouldn't pick him to win a game for my life, but he's serviceable, and around good players, he works. So, I mean, even there, if Ben doesn't come back and they can't draft Trey Lance or Trevor Lawrence or whoever it is, Mason Rudolph can probably, behind with a really good supporting cast, will win you 8 to 10 games. You can get there off that good a defense and people around him. Now, I know people think I'm being silly here, but my point is that the Steelers know how to get it right, and that's what's the interesting thing for me for the offseason.
We might even sneak into the playoffs as well in the wild card, because the wild card can get 9 and 7, and if the possibility of the 17th game as well. We didn't go through that, but I don't know if that's going to happen next year is on the cards or not. But yeah, it's. I think for this season and the 2020, we've been 11-0. I think it caught everyone off guard. We have a great team, an awesome team, and then just fell to pieces. But now it's like those pieces are still there. We just got to put the puzzle back together a little bit and get a few more things in there. Get a bit more running game, offensive line game. Big Ben will come back better, hopefully. We see the good Big Ben, and we get our number one receiver like we talked about. The defense will be there. Like TJ still needs to win a playoff game. Cam, we need some of these fellas. Like I want nothing more to see Joe Hayden win a Super Bowl, coming from the Browns and then now into the Steelers. So there's some players like that I think we need to push hard and get them that Super Bowl victory. So it's very, very interesting next few months for sure.
That's it. Just before we wrap up, I wanted to bring up Ezra's question. Hey gang, silver lining. So no team plucked Omar Khan from us. That is 100% one of the best things to happen so far in our off season. It's massive, as it's pointed out there in the live chat right now, around the fact that the salary cap needs to be navigated. I will say though, he did kind of put us in this position. However, I caveat that with we were competitive this season. We were competitive the previous season. So you can't necessarily, absolutely smash that. But the thing for me that I find concerning, fine in terms of going through all the protocols, but when Art Rooney was sort of asked about that this week, it was sort of said, oh, we've got great internal candidates, but when Kevin hangs it up, we'll look externally as well. That's all well and good. But between Omar Khan and I forget the other gentleman's name that runs the scouting department, we have great GMs ready to step up. Do not let them, don't go with anyone else. Omar Khan is the next GM. Partner him with the scouting guy. Pay him, both pay him a GM salary. As long as we keep bringing in these good blokes through the draft and through who we find off undrafted free agents and what have you, awesome. Keep the guys that know how to work this salary cap. And Omar Khan will learn from any mistakes and these backloading of contracts, which also is unavoidable, in some ways in terms of who they've had in the door. But I completely agree with Ezra there that's one of the biggest things that's been supportive of the Steelers, this offseason. And then we've got a live chat, Mark. We've got a super chat, sorry. Not a live chat. They're all live
awesome.
Chats. Shield 91. Big fan of the BTSC shows. Is that coming up?
I'll bring it up.
Yeah, it's not bringing up for me.
What's going on, YouTube?
Here we go. I got it. There we go. Love Touch and Under. Never miss a show. Maybe one day you all can come to Pittsburgh for a BTSC meetup in game. Shield 91. I know Mark and I are both chomping at the bit to get back. Who knows when that's going to be? Probably early 2023 before Aussies are allowed to travel over to the US and vice versa. Especially with quarantines make it really hard because we've got to do 2 weeks minimum quarantine back here in Australia if you travel overseas, and it's quite restricted at the moment. But when we can, I'm sure we'll be back over there. It'll be
2023. I'll be married by then. I don't want to go over to Pittsburgh if I'm married. Or actually,
I'll
you might be married
by then. I'll be married by then. I don't know. I've been engaged.
I'll go there to play up,
mate. I'm like, yeah, that's what I reckon for you, Mark, too. But we've been engaged for 6 months. We haven't even bothered trying to plan a wedding because you don't know. You just don't know.
Get married in Pittsburgh and Bad can be the bloke who marries both of you. That'd be awesome. Imagine that. I'm sure Bad's got it in his resume. He's done everything else. Surely.
I don't know. My fiance was joking that she was gonna, or maybe she wasn't joking, that she was gonna watch today's episode. So I don't know. I'll ask her afterwards and I'll find out the feedback. But yeah, but look, everyone, that wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a very quick show. These shows they absolutely fly by, but it's awesome to have everyone in the live chat. If you're catching this for the first time on YouTube or audio, we join you live from the future, Sunday morning our time, Saturday evening your time, about 5 p.m. Eastern time for the US. It's awesome as always. If you've got a question for us or something you want us to cover on a show, feel free to email me at aussiesteeler91@gmail.com. And even though we say Aussie with Zs, it's with a double S. So it's AUSSIE Steeler91@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a good Saturday evening.
Go Steelers.